everybody. Kemp from creativecashflow.com. Today we're going to talk about the Whetstone. The Whetstone. I mentioned this a lot through the other videos, and so here is your training on how to use the Whetstone. The creativecashflow.com Whetstone, it's made to sharpen your skills. It's made so that you can practice with numbers, just come up with stuff and sharpen your skills. And it's also made for you to use on production, right? You practice like you play. You always want to have things set up to where you're already used to analyzing deals in that way, so that when the real deal comes and you start analyzing it, it just feels like you're practicing and it's going to be easy to you. So that's the way that I've designed this, is so that you're going to have all the same numbers put in the same place in the same order, and you'll get used to it. But the key here is practice. You have to practice. You have to practice with this. So when you download the Whetstone, which you can download from the description, it's going to have instructions on it. It's going to kind of walk you through a little bit of what you're supposed to do on this, but let's get a video instructional to go along with it, why don't we, all right? So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go to your county CAD. Just look up a random street name, whatever street might be on a area that's going to work for you, right? I have a house on Rex Lane over here in Garland, and that's a good house. That's a good street for us because it's got a lot of those $100,000, $150,000 houses, that kind of thing. But just pick a street name, start picking houses off of it, and run with it. We're going to use 809 Rex. And the reason I'm going to use 809 Rex is if you look over at its total value, it's got $128,240 at its total value. I've been using a lot of examples of 100,000 with you guys because it makes percentages easy. I wanted to choose one that was not just an easy peasy $100,000 percentage, so that you might get a little bit more practice on this. What I want you to do is I want you to do the same thing. Start choosing houses that might be 80,000. Start choosing houses that might be 250,000. Go everywhere in between and just pick numbers out of the air to make it work. So now that we've chosen that one, I'm going to just round down. I'm going to say it's worth $128,000. In this first field in the Whetstone, for our ARV, we're going to use the appraised value from CAD for now. When you get your real lead in, obviously that would be a comped value. So what's our rental comp? Well, typically rental comps are going to be somewhere between 0.75 and 1.25% of the ARV, typically. And that's kind of what we run into. My rule of thumb for what your payment is going to be on a PITI payment when you sell your house with owner financing, it's typically 1% of the sales price. And those are typically going to be right along with the rental comps. So with this, I'm just going to go with a nice and easy 1% because I can do that in my head. I like easy numbers, so that makes us a $1,280 rental. Now just make up an underlying lien remaining principal. Just make it up. This is going to be your lead calling you, and you're just going to throw something out here. And I'll tell you, when I put this together, I was just throwing numbers out. So I didn't know as I was making this if this deal was going to work or not, but that's the point. That's the point of doing this. So I just threw out $102,000 is what they owe. Their house is worth $128,000. Also going to make up this number. What's the underlying interest rate? I put 4.5. Usually I'm running into interest rates that I'm taking over sub 2 on houses. The interest rates are typically between 3.5%, 6.5%, somewhere in there. So just choose something kind of within that boundary. What is the underlying lien's remaining term? Well, I'm just going to throw out 22 years because typically my underlying liens are anywhere between 18 and 28 years left on their mortgage when we're buying it subject to. So now you get to use your calculator. Use that information that you just came up with, the underlying principal, the interest rate, what the rental comp is. Oh, I'm sorry, you don't need the rental comp. The interest rate and the underlying lien remaining term, and then you can solve for the underlying lien payment. Watch our 10B2 calculator video to show how to use that calculator. Again, I can't stress enough, it's the lifeblood of this business, and this is kind of the reason why right here. So I find that our payment, principal and interest, is $609.33, okay? What do we have in arrearages? Is the seller behind on payments? If so, how much? You might just make this up as you're practicing, but if you have a real lead, you'll get that information for them. I threw out $8,000. How many repairs are needed in a dollar amount? I don't care what the actual repairs are, but what's the dollar amount? So $7,000, we're gonna throw that out there. Now our cash contract price right here, again, remember this is created to where you can use it on any kind of lead, right? So with our cash contract price, ideally we're going to shoot for 75 cents minus repairs, which is going to be our cash contract price. Ideally you want less, right? Typically when I'm doing a cash contract, I'm getting for anywhere between 63 and 78% is usually where I'm getting a deal at. So that's what I tell you right here. Practice with anything from 63 to 78% of your ARV and then subtract repairs out of that. But we're going to shoot for that 75-cent number right now, and that means that our cash contract price would be $89,000. Well, guys, you'll notice I wrote $89,000 in red because they owe 102. If they owe 102, I can't buy their house for 89, right? So even though I'm going through this exercise and I'm putting it on the paper just so that I kind of see what it would be, I also know right away that this number's not going to work. So I just marked it in red for myself to say that that's not going to work. Now the owner financed offer, this next section right here, this is going to be a section that as you start to practice and as you start to get used to this kind of deal, then you would start to use this section. Right up front, we're just going to ignore it. Right up front, when you're just starting to learn the Whetstone, don't worry about it. Just use the ARV as the contract price, right? I'm sorry, use the underlying remaining principal as the contract price. Just assume you're going to buy it for what they owe. However, there are going to be times, and there are going to be leads that you run into where they may owe 102, but they're unwilling to accept anything less than 110, right? So that would be where you would use this field. Your contract price would then be 110, and then your cash up front needed. What if they need $3,000 at closing? Well, you would put your cash up front at $3,000. That's how you would use those two fields. But for now, when we're just learning, we're going to assume that you're going to do the underlying remaining principal. That's your purchase price, and there's no cash out up front to the seller. This is just for you to get used to running these deals. So for now, I'm going to just mark red through those two fields because we're not going to use them. We're going to move to page 2. So right up top, we've got our wholesale sales price on this deal. Now, typically wholesalers in my area are doing it 80 to 82 cents of the ARV minus repairs, and that's going to be the price that you can push a deal out through your email list into a cash buyers list. So if I do that, if I run it at 80% on this deal, that means that we've got to sell it at $95,400. So this is another one of those, and I'm putting in red because I can't sell it for $95,400 if they owe 102, right? It's just not going to work. They're not going to come up with that much money because I would still have to make a profit on top of that. So I still want you guys to put these numbers in there. I still want you to run it because it is going to help you sharpen your skill, because there are going to be times where that number does make sense. But just make a little notation to yourself. It just doesn't make sense on this one. What is our owner financed sales price? Here's the thing. I've got a note on there that says that you can do 105 to 110. As far as if you compare the retail price of this property to the owner finance price, you could probably get 105% or 110%. But when you're running these deals, I really want you to do it conservatively, right? We've talked about this in both the knowns and unknowns video and in the backing into a deal video. When you're analyzing the deal, you want to use your conservative numbers, because if you get aggressive on these numbers, if you come in here and you say, I know that I'm going to be able to sell this house for 110, and then something happens and you can't sell it for 110, well, if you bought the house on the 110 number, you bought wrong. Now you've got the possibility of losing money. If you can't hit that aggressive 110, you might lose money on it. However, if you sell the house, if you run your numbers by selling the house for 100% of retail, which is not being aggressive, this is just what it would go for retail, anything that happens different is going to be happening positively, because you might be able to sell for 1.5 or 110, right? So we're going to run conservative. We're going to go 100% on this one. I'm going to put 128 in here. Owner financed agent commissions. Now, I pay 3% to my agents to bring me in a buyer on my owner financed homes. Here's the thing. 3% is not an easy number to come up with in your head. However, 1% is. So just a little trick here. You can take that 1% number and multiply it by 3, and now you've got 3%. So 1% of 128 is 1,280, right? So if you multiply that by 3, then you get your 3,840 number. So some numbers are easier than others, but same thing. You know, if you need a 30% discount on a house, let's say you're talking to a seller, you can keep eye contact with them, right? If you know you're trying to buy at 70 cents, you can keep eye contact with them. If you know your ARV is whatever, 120, well, 10% of that is 12. So 30% is going to be 3 times that 12. You've got $36,000. So you're going to take 120, back off 36 from it, and then you know in your head what your 70% mark is, right? So that's just kind of a quick way that you can be doing math, be running your deal in your head while the negotiation process is happening. Your down payment. We're going to ask for a 10% down payment when we sell our property, right? When we do a wraparound mortgage or owner financing, we're going to ask for a 10% down payment. That's an easy number. That's $12,800. So what's our loan amount? Well, the loan amount is going to be the sales price less the down payment, right? And I've got that written as a note for you. So just whatever your sales price is minus your down payment, that's your loan amount. Since we're taking a 10% down payment, that means we're left over with the 90% as our loan. So one quick way to know if you're just trying to find a loan number is you can do 128 times 0.9 to find 90%. But whichever way you get there, you could also do 128 minus 12.8. You have a loan amount of $115,200. What's our loan amortization? Well, we're always going to use 30 years when we're running our deals, right? 30 years, 360 months. The reason we're doing this is, again, because you want to be conservative. Why would I choose 360? Why would I choose 30 years? Well, A, it's the most common one that buyers want. Most commonly, they want to get a 30-year note. But B, when you do a 30-year note, your payment is lower, right? If you get a 15-year note or a 10-year note, the payment's going to be higher. So if we're analyzing our deal using 30 years, that means that we're running the lowest payment that we would expect to get in. Therefore, we're buying conservatively, and anything that happens on top of that is going to be gravy. If we ran our numbers at 15 years, we would get this large payment. We might back our deal out and say, oh, well, shoot, I'm getting $3,000 a month on this deal. That means I can pay $2,200 a month. But then let's say that you turn out and nobody's going to buy it for 15 years. You have to sell it on a 30-year note. Now, all of a sudden, you're only getting $2,000 a month, but you agreed to pay $2,200. Now you're losing money. We don't lose money. We invest. Our sales interest rate, the going rate is 9.5%, but it's typically going to be anywhere between 8 and 10. So just stick with a number there, but I always use 9.5 because that's what I know I'm going to get from my buyers. And the sale, principal, and interest payment. Again, use your 10B2 calculator. In this case, we've got a payment of $968 and 66 cents. So that's our sales side. So we did our acquisition side. Our what's the lead look like? We did our sales side. What's our disposition going to look like with owner financing? Now we need to look in the escrow. Now we need to see what our escrow information is. What are our taxes, insurance, MIP, all that kind of stuff. So for taxes, that's an easy one. That's one of the reasons why I had you go to the CAD in the first place to pick an address, because now you can just click on that address and see what their taxes are. So if we go back, this is the CAD for, was 819, I think, Rex that we chose. So you can see total estimated taxes are $36.15. So we find that in the CAD. And again, I want you to watch the basic understandings and the taxes video to figure out what we're looking for when we're looking for taxes. The short story here is you always want to make sure that you're not getting any deductions taken out on the CAD right there. And if you are, you need to know how to recalculate this to put the proper numbers in. But watch those videos to learn more about that. For now, I understand that because my taxable value is $128,240 across the board right here, there were no deductions taken on this property. Therefore, my $36.15 number is correct. So I'm going to go back, and on my Whetstone, under that section on the escrow, annual taxes, I'm just going to write in $36.15 with 48 cents. Annual insurance. This is going to be 1.5% of the owner financed loan amount, okay? When you sell your property with owner financing, you're going to sell it for $128, you're going to collect a down payment of 10%, and that leaves a loan of $115,200, right? That's the number that you're going to use to calculate your monthly or your insurance on. So we're going to use 1.5% of that loan number, which is $1,728. MIP and PMI, this is a very important one, okay? When you buy a house with subject to, if that loan has MIP or PMI on it, this is not something in the escrow account that you can pass on to your buyer. I'll say this in my wraparound video, I'll say this in the subject to video, but I don't care what the escrow account is because at the end of the day, it's the buyer that's paying that, right? At the end of the day, who pays taxes and insurance? The person who owns the house. I don't own the house anymore. My buyer owns the house. However, PMI and MIP is not something that the buyer pays. PMI and MIP is something that we have to absorb. And because I didn't know that whenever I was starting this business and did several deals in my first year, I'm currently not making about $90,000 a year that I could be making because of money that's being lost, being chipped away from MIP and accounts, right? Because the mistake that I made was I looked at my seller's mortgage documents, and I said, okay, well, their PI is $628. I don't care what's in the escrow account. So if I charge this guy 9.5%, I'm going to get $968. Therefore, I've got about $300 of a difference. I'm making $300 in cash flow. Sweet, let's do the deal. Well, come to find out, a year later, wait a minute, I do care about something that's in that escrow account. I do care about PMI and MIP because even though taxes and insurance are being paid by my buyer, MIP is not. And so a little $40, $60, $70 at a time, now I'm losing about $90,000 a year because I was not paying attention to that. Guys, if you question me on how I say that there's so many gears that are turning in owner financing, that you've got to do these things the right way and really watch through these series and learn the full education, there you go. Wouldn't you like to make an extra $90,000 a year and over something so minor, so easy to miss? So anyway, once those things get paid off, then I'll be making that money back again. It's not like I'm losing money, it's just opportunity cost. It's something that I didn't account for on the sales side. And if you watch our wraparound video and you watch about the PMI and the MIP video, I'll show you some ways that you can still kind of recapture that fee, even though you can't pass the fee on to them. What's another way that you can recapture that? We'll talk about that as well. But for now, just know that it's going to be about 0.5% to 1% of the original loan amount. I'm going to go ahead and say that the original loan amount on this house was $115, and that means that my PMI is going to be $575. By the way, in our basic understandings video, we talk a little bit about PMI versus MIP. PMI, private mortgage insurance. MIP, mortgage insurance premium. FHA has MIP. Conventionals are PMI. Same kind of thing, different name. Conventional, you can remember, is not government-backed, right? Conventional is not a government-backed loan. Therefore, it's done by a private entity. Therefore, you have private mortgage insurance. Whereas FHA, that kind of thing, government-backed, you've got MIP. All right? So add up those numbers, those previous three numbers. You've got a total annual escrow of $5,918.48, which you divide that by 12 to get your monthly escrow payment of $493.21. So let's move on to the next page, page 3. Now we start talking about our profits. Well, what would our net profits be if we sold this house retail? In our case, we're probably not going to be able to do that, but let's just look. I typically say run 93% of the ARV, and that's what you should be walking away with from the closing table roundabout. Now, those of you who are newer in the business and might not have connections and might not have that kind of stuff where you can get away with some discounts, you might want to run it at 90%. Be safe, because Joe Schmo is typically walking away with 90% of the sales price because you've got an agent fee of 3% for both sides. That's paid by the seller. You've got title insurance. What if you have to pay for a survey? You know, what other kind of closing costs are you having to pay for? That kind of stuff. That all adds up. Well, you got 6% just in agent fees. You've got another % or so in your title costs, and then there's other closing costs and closing fees, that kind of thing. So you can run it anywhere you want. I put 93% on here. But if you were able to sell it, that's where you would put that in there. But we can't sell for cash because we couldn't buy for cash, right? What is our net profits on the wholesale? Well, it would be the cash contract price versus the wholesale price, and we couldn't buy it for wholesale, right? I want to step back just for a second. We're all about being creative. I put a mark through this net profits on the retail side because I typically say if you're going to buy with cash, sell for cash. If you're going to buy with owner financing, sell with owner financing. It is possible to go in there, buy it with owner financing, and sell it retail, right? You could take over on the 102, subject to. You could bring them up with $8,000 worth of cash flow, which if you watch our other video series on this, on how loans work and everything, you'll see that $8,000, and this is specifically in the subject to video, that $8,000 that you would catch them up on, not all that $8,000 is going to go towards their principal. Maybe 2 or 3 of that might. So you might have a loan of $99, and then you've got $7,000 worth of repairs. So now you've got a total basis of somewhere around $115,000, $117,000. If you could sell the house for $128 retail, still doesn't make sense. If you're walking away with 90%, you sell for $128, that means that you would actually net $115. That's your basis in the property. So that's why we've got a red line here. But sometimes you can buy that house subject to, put in the repairs, put in the back payments, and then put it up on retail sale and make money off of that one. So don't close doors for yourself. You've got to mix and match. That's what this is all about. That's why I say we're creative cash flow. We're going to be creative about it. You've got tools now that I'm giving you, and they're tools, and I always say it's your bat belt. You got different tools in your bat belt. You got to pull out for different situations, and you can always mix and match those. Anyway, let's move on. the owner finance down payment net profits, okay? So we're gonna do this. We're gonna compare our cash out versus our cash in. This is talked about in both the how to back into a deal and the knowns and unknowns video on how you're gonna compare that to get your cash upfront number. But we got a down payment of $12,800, right? But we had to spend more than that. We spent on the agent commissions, we spent on the repairs, we spent on the back payments. So you've got $12,800 down, you had $7,000 in repairs, you had $8,000 in arrearages, you had $3,800 in agent commissions, which means that at the end of the day, you had a net negative of $6,040. So we're going to put that in our owner finance down payment net profits. We are a net negative, and this is in the net negatives video, if you remember that, of $6,040, okay? And that's not the worst thing in the world, and you'll see. Our owner finance cash flow net profits, this is going to be the sale principal and interest less the underlying lien principal and interest, okay? Which is $359.33, okay? So at that point in time, we look at our equity, and we see that our equity is $13,200. Now that's the difference between the owner financed loan and the loan that we have taken over on, right? So we took over on 102, we had an owner financed loan of 115. So what we look at here is we've got $6,040. We're making a cash flow of $360. How long is it going to take us to catch that up? 16.81 months, which really converts into 17 months. And you know, I just realized I did something in here, and I'm going to leave it this way, just to prove to you how easy it is to mess these things up, because I didn't include the PMI in this cash flow. That PMI that we were paying out, I didn't include that to subtract out of my owner finance cash flow net profits. Now, the reason why is because I have now gotten to the point where I found a way to pass on that fee without having to actually pass on that fee. You can do that through different mechanisms. So I do encourage you to watch the wraparound video, and I do encourage you to watch the PMI video to understand how to go about doing that so that you can keep your whole cash flow. But just as much as I was just telling you how I'm losing $90,000 a year because of this, that's exactly what you can do. So be careful to pay attention to all of the details on this. And then again, if you want to learn how you can avoid having to miss out on that money, watch those other couple videos. But this would take 17 months. And for those of you who know my rules of thumb, I want to get caught back up in about 18 months, right? So we're not going to make any money on this for the next 17 months. We're going net negative of $6,040. We're not going to make any money for the next 17 months. But that's okay. And why is that okay? Well, let's look. How much would you make on this deal? Total, you're going to make a net income on this deal of $181,814. That's assuming you go to the full amortization. You were only out of pocket $6,040. $6,000 to make $181,000. Your cash flow is going to be $360. Once that 17-month period is up, a year and a half from now, you're going to start making $360 a month. That's good money. $360 a month is good money. Do this a couple times a month. Do this 4 or 5 times a month. That starts to add up. The cool thing is, once you pay off the underlying loan, now all of a sudden, the entire owner financed payment is coming to you. That $968 that your owner financed buyer is paying, now that's all yours. So in 22 years, whenever that loan gets paid off, you're going to be sitting on the beach and you're going to be like, wait, what month is this? February. Oh, and then you look at your bank account and all of a sudden you just got a raise from $360 to $960. It's a $600 raise out of nowhere just because you were able to get that underlying lien paid off in time. So guys, this is really powerful stuff. Using this Whetstone, again, it's a way for you to analyze these deals. And I want you to go through and just go through your CAD and start making stuff up and start practicing and start running these deals, because you've got to get good at analyzing. You've got to get good at analyzing. You've got to know what relationships occur between certain things changing. And with this kind of deal, you can just go back and you can say, okay, well, what if I got an 8% interest rate? Would it work there? What if I got a 10% interest rate? What would happen at that point in time? What if I had to buy it for 110 instead of the contract price of 102, right? And just start playing with it. Change one number and see how that affects the rest of the deal. The reason why is that at the end of the day, when you start talking to your seller and you've got a lead sitting in front of you, a lot of this stuff becomes second nature. Like, I don't have to run my Whetstone anymore. A lot of this stuff I can do in my head. I can do this entire Whetstone in about 30 seconds by using my calculator, and I'm going to write down maybe 4 numbers on a piece of paper, right? So I can be in the middle of a conversation with somebody, literally talking to them about their Chihuahua Fluffy, while I'm running numbers on my calculator, coming out with what my offer is going to be to them. And it's because I sat down and I ran analysis and I just made stuff up and I got good at this kind of stuff. So I encourage you guys to do the same thing. Like always, if you need more hand-holding, I do personal mentoring. There is a full set of lessons on creativecashflow.com. If you've not signed up for the top level there, just understand that we go really in depth with everything that's going on in owner financing and real estate investing in general. Go out to Facebook, go out to YouTube, find Propelio.com, who's been kind enough to sponsor these videos. Find creativecashflow.com, like us, share us, all that kind of good stuff. Keep watching these videos, and I will catch up with you next time.